It will always be a fact that you are a murderer. You are a demon seed that your parents brought into this world to bring suffering on everybody else. Shame on them. I really expected my nephew to be looking down inside of my casket instead of me looking down in his casket. As a family, we don't even think that 30 years in prison would be enough punishment for her.
She's going to jail. She's going to pay for what she did to my son because he didn't want to be with her. Who gives her the right? She thinks she loves him more than me. I'm his mother. That's his father. She made that decision to take my son's life.
She was wrapping Christmas gifts. He was singing along to Mariah Carey, loud, off-key, completely unbothered, while his mother and sister decorated a pink Christmas tree in the living room. 17 years old, football player, straight-A student, the kind of kid who fills a room just by walking into it. That was December 20th, 2024. A few hours later, Joachim Loller was lying on the floor of a parking garage, bleeding from a wound that had gone straight through his hoodie, through his shirt, through muscle and bone, and directly into his heart. He never made it to Christmas. And the person who put that knife in his chest was the girl he had been trying to break up with. Before we go any further, before we get to the courtroom, before we get to the sentence, before we get to his mother standing at a podium barely holding herself together, we need to go back. We need to understand who Joachim Loller was, because he was not just a name in a headline. He was not just a victim in a case number. He was a 17-year-old boy who woke up that morning with his whole life ahead of him. And somebody took that from him. People who knew Joachim Loller called him Kame. He played football for Miami Northwestern Senior High School, one of the most storied programs in Florida high school athletics. He wasn't just a player on the roster. He was the kind of athlete that coaches talk about in terms of potential, in terms of ceiling, in terms of what might come next. College football, maybe beyond that. The NFL wasn't a fantasy, it was a conversation people around him were actually having. But the football was almost secondary to who he was as a person. Straight-A student, the kind of teenager who made his family proud not because of what he could become, but because of who he already was. His mother, Natalie Jean, described him in court with the kind of detail that only a parent who has truly paid attention can recall: the small moments, the ordinary ones, the ones that feel monumental only after they're gone. She talked about that night, the pink Christmas tree, Mariah Carey playing, Joachim walking in and making a joke about the tree, then just singing, loud and ridiculous and fully himself. She and his sister became his backup singers without even thinking about it. Hours later, she was choosing his casket. That's the distance between alive and gone. That's how fast it happened. And that's why this case shook South Florida the way it did, because Joachim Loller wasn't a statistic. He was a son, he was a brother, he was a teenager who sang Mariah Carey at the top of his lungs in his living room, and then walked out into a night he would never come back from. Now Jahara Malik. She was 17 at the time, Joachim's girlfriend, or more accurately, his on-again, off-again girlfriend. The kind of relationship that had history, that had tension, that had the particular emotional weight of two young people who didn't quite know how to let go. 8 days before December 20th, Joachim had made a decision. He was done. He tried to end it. His mother said he was honest with Jahara, told her directly that he didn't want to be in the relationship anymore. That conversation didn't land the way he hoped. What prosecutors would later reveal in court painted a picture of a relationship that had been fraying for a long time, and not quietly. There were alleged incidents, broken phones, a prior knife-related confrontation during an argument, a pattern that the prosecutors described as a history of violence the public didn't know about yet. But on December 20th, Jahara Malik showed up. And she had a knife on her. The parking garage at Joachim's apartment complex is where it happened. Surveillance footage, the kind of footage that courts play and courtrooms go silent watching, captured the two of them in the stairwell area, running around, horseplaying. Jahara would later tell police, just kids being kids. Then they moved out of the camera's frame. When they reappeared, Joachim was on the ground, blood spreading from his chest. One of the detectives who testified at the sentencing hearing, Miami Police Sergeant Juan Santos, told the court what that footage also captured. Audio, a voice. Joachim's voice. Jahara, don't. Or possibly, Jahara, stop. Either way, those were among the last words Joachim Loller ever spoke. Not a threat, not an escalation, a plea. A 17-year-old boy asking the girl in front of him to stop, and she didn't. The knife went in with such force, prosecutor Kristen Rodriguez told the court that it penetrated his hoodie, his shirt, his muscle, his fat, clipped his rib, and drove directly into his heart. That is not an accident. That is the kind of force that requires intention, even if the intention lived only in a single catastrophic second. And that detail, the force, the depth, the precision of that wound, would become central to how this case was ultimately judged. Joachim died shortly after. In the immediate aftermath, Jahara Malik told police it was an accident, horseplaying, a terrible, tragic accident. She cooperated, she cried, and for a period of time, more than a month after the killing, no charges were filed. That's when Joachim's family started making noise. They took their grief to the streets. They organized protests outside the Miami-Dade State Attorney's office. Natalie Jean, his mother, a woman who had just buried her teenage son, stood in front of cameras and demanded accountability. She didn't ask, she demanded, the way only a mother who has already lost everything can demand something. She took my son's life because he was honest with her that he didn't want to be with her, Jean said.
She's going to jail. She's going to pay for what she did to my son because he didn't want to be with her. Who gives her the right? She thinks she loved him more than me. I'm his mother. That's his father. She made that decision to take my son's life. Nobody made that decision.
And she not realizing her actions, her behavior, and her entitlement is the reason why he didn't want to be with her. It took the family going public. It took the pressure. It took the community showing up. And eventually, prosecutors filed charges against Jahara Malik for manslaughter and carrying a concealed weapon. But here's the thing that stayed with a lot of people: manslaughter. Not murder, manslaughter. Joachim's father, David Loller SR, never let that go. We feel as though she's been undercharged, he said. We feel like the whole investigation was influenced from the jump. Whether that's true or not, that feeling of a system that didn't fully see his son became part of the emotional fabric of this case. A father watching justice move at a pace and in a direction that didn't match his grief. Months passed, the case built, and then, in March of 2025, something happened that nobody quite expected. Jahara Malik pleaded guilty. No plea deal, no negotiated sentence. She stood before the court and admitted to killing Joachim Loller and then left her fate entirely in the hands of a judge. That's either an act of remorse or an act of strategy or both. People argued about it. The internet argued about it. The family argued about it. But the result was simple. Judge Christine Hernandez now held Jahara Malik's future in her hands. The sentencing hearing was May 5, 2026, at the Richard E. Gerstein Justice Building in Miami. Packed courtroom, both families separated by an invisible but absolute line. Joachim's people on one side, cousins, classmates, family friends, all wearing shirts with his face on them, all carrying the particular stillness of people who have been waiting a long time for this moment. Jahara's family on the other side, crying before anything even began. 9 character witnesses testified for Jahara Malik. One of them, a pastor named Angela Powell Williams, who had been counseling Malik since the tragedy, looked the judge in the eye and said, "I have seen her face the gravity of her actions. She does not avoid the truth of what happened." That was the defense's argument. Youth, remorse, mental health, PTSD, depression, anxiety, all documented, all real, all presented as context for why this teenager should be sentenced as a youthful offender, sent to a boot camp program, given a chance at something other than decades behind bars. The prosecution saw it differently. 20 years they asked for, 10 years of probation on top of that. And when the victim impact statements began, the air in that courtroom changed. Joachim's aunt, Zeldrina Beecham, did not hold back. She stood at that podium and she said what she had been holding for 16 months. She called Jahara Malik a murderer. She said Joachim's future was stolen. And then she said something that ricocheted around the internet within hours of the hearing. You are a demon seed that your parents brought into this world to bring suffering on everybody else. Shame on them.
It will always be a fact that you are a murderer. You are a demon seed that your parents brought into this world to bring suffering on everybody else. Shame on them. I really expected my nephew to be looking down inside of my casket instead of me looking down in his casket.
The proceedings had to be paused. The judge warned the gallery. 2 women left the courtroom in tears when the surveillance footage played again. Joachim's mother spoke about choosing a casket, about seeing his body at the funeral home, about the specific, unspeakable grief of a parent who outlives their child, not from illness, not from accident, but because someone who claimed to love him put a knife in his chest. His life matters, she said, simply, without rage, just that. And Joachim's father, still furious, still convinced the system had underserved his son, made clear that no sentence would ever feel like enough. We feel like she's been undercharged, he said again, because for him, the question was never really about the years. The question was about the charge, about what the law decided Joachim's life was worth. Then Jahara Malik stood up. She faced the family, she faced the judge, and she spoke. I was reckless, she said. That knife should never have been out, and because of that, a life was lost. I was wrong for what I did, and every day I sit and think about the damage I caused. She paused. The family wants me in prison, but I'm in my own prison for the rest of my life. And then I wish I could go back and change what happened, but I can't, and that's the worst part.
Good afternoon, everyone. Your Honor, I've been thinking about what to say for a long time, and the truth is there are no perfect words for something like this. When everyone read a speech before they get sentenced, they ask for mercy, but I'm here to accept my consequences for what I have done. The night that everything happened, not one thought in my mind was to leave or run. I didn't want this to happen. I was thinking about saving someone else's life instead of myself. That's why it was a quick reaction for me to wrap his shirt around my hand, apply pressure to his wound, and stop the bleeding while communicating with 911 to assist me. I wanted him to live. I understand that trying to help does not undo the harm. I stayed because at the end of the day, I was at fault. I would rather live knowing I tried to help than live knowing I left him there when I could have possibly saved his life. I was reckless. That knife should have never been out, and because of that, a life was lost. I was wrong for what I did, and every day I sit and think about the damage I caused. The family wants me in prison, but I'm in my own prison for the rest of my life. I understand that I have to be very mindful when it comes down to this, to making decisions and being more, being more aware on choices that have consequences behind them. This situation forced me to sit with myself in a way I never had to before. I had to grow up fast. I had to reflect. I had to reflect on who I am and who I want to be. I know I can't change the past, but I can change how I am moving forward and become a better person than I was before. To his family, I know an apology cannot do anything for you all, but after that night, I tried numerous times to reach out. I wanted to call Miss Nat and his dad so bad just to tell y'all how sorry I am and beg for your forgiveness, but I couldn't legally. I love y'all son so much, and I never wanted this to happen to him. This was my best friend, my love, and someone I could vent to about any and everything. He was a good person and definitely should have been here. We would have been getting ready for prom and graduation right now. This is a sad situation. I miss him every day. I know there are memories, birthdays, holidays, things that will never feel the same without him. I wish I could go back and change what happened, but I can't, and that's the worst part. Y'all didn't deserve this pain, and I wish I hadn't been the one to give it to y'all. I pray one day the family could forgive me, and I want to say I'm sorry to his friends and his family. I know that I hurt y'all in a way that y'all can never forgive me, and I hope one day y'all can. When my mom that night after the detectives, I talked to them and they told me he was in surgery, and I knew something was wrong. I went to the room and my mom and my dad was there, and my mom was crying, and I'm like, why y'all crying? He's good, he's in surgery. My mom said the boy died and my life stopped after that. My heart was broken. All I could think about is him being gone. I just pray that we all heal from this, and I pray for closure, this is the sad situation from both ends. My family hurting too. We know y'all hurting. We hurting with y'all, and we not against y'all. We all in this together. Like we fighting for me, but we're on y'all side. We're not against y'all. Yes, thank you.
The courtroom was silent. The family was not visibly moved. How could they be? The boy she was talking about was buried. The boy she was talking about had said, "Jahara, don't," and she hadn't stopped. Judge Christine Hernandez took everything in: the character witnesses, the impact statements, the surveillance footage, the prosecutor's evidence about the prior incidents, the pattern, the history, the defense's plea for leniency, the family's plea for the maximum. And then she spoke directly to Jahara Malik. "His life was taken way too soon," she said. "Your youth does not excuse the foreseeable consequences of the decision you made. The choices that you made affected the trajectory of all of their lives, the trajectory of your life as well as your family's." She did not accept the narrative of an accident. She did not sentence Malik as a youthful offender. She looked at the evidence and she said what the wound had already told investigators. The amount of force that was required to inflict that wound was not accidental. And then she gave her ruling. 17 years in Florida State Prison, 5 years of reporting probation, mandatory mental health evaluation, and one more thing, something unusual, something that felt almost like the judge reaching beyond the sentence itself, trying to keep Yarkheim's memory alive in a room where he would never be present. Every December 20th, for every year she is on probation, Jahara Malik must write a letter, acknowledging what happened, reflecting on how it affected her life. Every single year, on the anniversary of the night she killed him, she must sit down and put it in writing. The date of his death will follow her forever. The reaction was immediate and split down the middle. Natalie Jean, Yarkheim's mother, stood outside the courthouse and said the words she had been waiting to say for nearly a year and a half. "I'm glad today my son can finally rest in peace, knowing that justice was served." She meant it, you could hear it. The exhale of a woman who had fought her way through a system she didn't trust, stood in front of cameras while her heart was broken, organized and demanded, and refused to be quiet until somebody listened.
Outside the courtroom.
I hope when she go today and go to prison and get processed, she gonna sit there and think about the lives that she destroyed.
Mentally, I think that she was prepared for the consequences. I just feel that us as the family.
Jahara's relatives left the courtroom in tears. Her uncle walked out and said it plainly: justice was not served for the defendant, my niece Jahara Malik. She was a youthful offender at the time this happened, and I feel that the court did not recognize that. 2 families, 1 verdict. 0 satisfaction on either side, and maybe that's the only honest outcome possible when 2 teenagers' lives intersect in a parking garage, and only one of them walks away. David Lola Essar, Yarkim's father, was still talking about the charge, still believing his son deserved more, still carrying the weight of a system that classified what happened to Yarkim as manslaughter when, in his eyes, it should have been murder. And the defense, reportedly, was already considering an appeal. So here we are. 17 years. That's the number a judge assigned to the life of Yarkim Lola. That's the math the court did. That's what a December night in a parking garage became, translated into years behind a prison door. Yarkim Lola would have graduated high school. He would have played college football. He would have had a life that stretched out in front of him in directions none of us can know because we never got to find out. He was 17. He was singing Mariah Carey a few hours before he died. He was asking his girlfriend to stop. And now his mother visits his grave after night shifts, and his sister doesn't have a brother, and his father carries the particular grief of a man who doesn't think the system saw his son clearly. And Jahara Malik, 18 years old, guilty plea on the record. 17 years ahead of her in a Florida state prison, will write a letter every December 20th for 5 years. Whether those letters are read by anyone, whether they mean anything, whether remorse means anything when the person you harmed can't receive it, those are questions the law doesn't answer. The law just gave her a sentence and called it justice. Whether it is justice, that depends entirely on who you ask. One argument in a parking garage. One knife that never should have been there. One boy who sang too loud and loved too honestly and died before he ever got to become who he was going to be. And now 2 families, on opposite sides of a courtroom, on opposite sides of grief, are both left carrying something they will never fully put down. What do you think? Was 17 years the right sentence, or did the justice system fall short? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, share it, because Yarkim Lola's name deserves to be remembered.